Welcome to Habeas Treasures, where I try to decipher this book, There's Treasure Inside by Jon Collins Black, in order to find one of the 5 hidden treasures. On today's episode, I'll be continuing my breakdown of the Pokemon box chapter. Let's begin. On a previous video, I presented a bunch of different clues that all led me to the Roosevelt Hotel in New Orleans being a significant part of the solve. Now, I'm not going to go through and rehash all of that in this video, but I encourage you to go back and watch it if you haven't already. So if we assume then that the Roosevelt Hotel is the place in the story that the author is referencing when he writes, "The forest opened up and an eagle greeted us from high above," then it makes sense that the treasure is hidden somewhere nearby. In the story, he writes, "We left the box not far from a place where locals turn up from time to time." Now this phrase could have multiple meanings. Taken literally, it can mean a place where people get together like a meeting place or a concert venue. But what else could it mean? The words "turn up" caught my attention. The Roosevelt Hotel is located right off of Canal Street. And in New Orleans, Canal Street acts as an unofficial dividing line between downtown New Orleans and uptown New Orleans. So one possibility is that the phrase "turn up" means to make your way uptown from Canal Street. In fact, at 2 different locations on Canal Street, the local streetcars do just that. They turn up St. Charles Avenue and also at Elk Place. So if the locals refers to the streetcars and turn up means to head uptown, then from time to time might be the streetcar's departure schedules. I think both of these locations, St. Charles Avenue and Elk Place, are worth checking out. Now, St. Charles Avenue is located 1 block away from Nostalgia, which I mentioned in an earlier video as a possible clue. However, for this video, let's focus our attention on the Elk Place location. On page 220, after hiding the treasure, the author writes, "As the afternoon rolled into early evening, it sadly became time to leave." Could the word "rolled" be another streetcar reference? I think so. And I took this picture of the streetcar sign at the stop located at the southwest corner of Elk Place. The car that goes uptown from here is the number 46. I think the author might be connecting the numbers 4 and 6 to afternoon into early evening, because 4 p.m. is afternoon and 6 p.m. is early evening. Let's look at the next line of the story. "So I bowed to my friend in appreciation and left him the jar of flies." Originally, I thought that the author was just making another Japanese reference in the story by bowing to the Froakie. However, at the corner of Canal Street and Elk Place, there are a couple of theaters, the Joy Theater and the Sanger Theater. And actors, they typically bow to the audience during the applause at the end of the performance in order to show their appreciation. And we all know that joy is definitely one of the author's favorite words that he uses repeatedly throughout the book. So if the Pokemon box actually is hidden near the Roosevelt Hotel, the Joy Theater is probably a clue. Now, if we look at the map of Elk Place and the surrounding area, we can start to see how these locations relate to one another. Here's the Roosevelt Hotel, here's the Joy Theater, and here's the streetcar stop with car number 46. Now let's see if we can make any more connections to this general area in the book. In the story on page 220, he writes, "The Froakie said he liked this area so much he wanted to stay." Now the Froakie looks a lot like a frog. So maybe he wanted to stay here because it's also the location of Wild Louisiana Kayak Swamp Tours, or more likely because the Froakie is a common Pokemon and the streetcar stop is located at the corner of Elk Place and Common Street. And in the next paragraph, the author gives a possible explanation why his photos came out overexposed by writing, "Perhaps it had something to do with taking photographs of expanded reality." Now typically when someone mentions augmented reality or virtual reality, they refer to it by the initials AR or VR. So expanded reality in this case would have the initials ER, which would be a clever way for the author to make the connection to the Tulane Hospital emergency room located here on the map. The author continues explaining the photo in the next paragraph, writing, "This snapshot is now the only evidence that any of this adventure ever happened at all." I think he purposely uses the words snapshot and evidence to make a connection to the Tulane University Police Department located across from the streetcar stop. And finally, the very last sentence in the story is, "I felt the least I could do was share it with you in this book." I think he intentionally uses the word share and book to drop a clue to the main branch of the New Orleans Public Library, which again is just across the street from the ER, the police station, and the streetcar stop. Now when we look at all these places clustered near one another on a map, a final clue jumps out. Remember how each commemorative coin that goes with the Part 2 treasure boxes has a unique design? Well, the design for the Pokemon box coin looks like this, which in turn looks a lot like this shape you see on the map near the library. I really think this area has a strong possibility to be a clue in finding the treasure. Now we know that the treasure isn't hidden inside any of these buildings based on what the author has said in interviews, but it could be somewhere nearby. Or one of these buildings, like the library, could be a marker along with the Roosevelt Hotel, Nostalgia, and the Spotted Cat Music Club that help point the way to the ultimate hiding spot. All right, that's all I've got for today. Now, in my next video, I'll review the introduction to part 2 of the book and explain why I think there are clues in that introduction that can help you find each of the treasures.